This course has a laboratory component in which, had you been on campus, you would have visited the laboratory, performed experiments to measure stress and strain. Since you are not on campus, that part of physically performing the experiments will not be possible. However, I would put all my efforts to ensure that you get the same amount of exposure as what you would have got had you been on campus. So the plan is the following. There are several techniques to perform stress analysis. We will focus on two of them. So I will cover the basics of these techniques in some detail, and through videos I will demonstrate the experiments, and we will provide you with the experimental data and also tell you how to process the data. So you will have to do certain calculations, plot graphs, make certain observations, and also give reasons for your observations, and submit all of these in the form of a report, and these reports will be graded. So first, I would like to explain to you the need for experimental stress analysis. Okay. In stress analysis, one would evaluate the stresses at different points in a material which is subjected to certain boundary conditions. In the Mechanics of Solids course, ESO 202, you have learned how to calculate stresses at a point in a material which is subjected to certain symbol type of loads. In the course ME 321 also, you will learn how to calculate stresses, but in a more rigorous manner. With this background, let me take a very simple example as shown here. We consider a beam which is simply supported and carrying 2 point loads, one at a distance of L by 4 from the left support, another one at a distance of L by 4 from the right support. Both loads are equal. The beam has a rectangular cross section with a width of B and a depth of H. Now, if you consider the mid-span section at mid-span, you know from your mechanics of solids that the bending stress varies linearly along the depth of the beam. For this loading condition, you have compressive stresses at the top and tensile stresses at the bottom. You also know how to calculate the maximum bending stress as given in this expression here. Now let me take another example where you have the same beam but now subjected to a single concentrated force at mid-span. Even for this case, you know that the bending stress varies linearly along the depth of the beam, and at mid-span the maximum bending stress is given by this expression, which is same as what you have in this case. So what exactly is different between these two beams? The first case, to draw the bending moment diagram, you will notice that in this section, in the region between the two loads, the bending moment is constant, so it is pure bending. Hence, the other two components of stresses, sigma yy and sigma xy, are 0. Now, if you look at the second beam on the right hand side, if you draw the shear force and bending moment diagram, you will notice that the bending moment varies as you move from one support to the mid-span. The shear force remains constant in this section and again constant at this section. At the mid-span, the shear force changes sign and it is 0. So you know that shear stresses are present. If you take a section as shown here, then you will notice that the shear stress varies parabolically over the depth of the beam. The maximum shear stress is at neutral axis. What about the stress component sigma yy? As of now, you don't know whether it is 0 or not 0. If it is not 0, how to calculate sigma yy? Let me take another example. What I am showing here is a cantilever beam fixed at the left end with a concentrated force at its tip. You have seen this figure many times. At the fixed end, the deflection and the slope are 0. Now you can draw the free body diagram of this beam as shown here. You have a moment and two forces at the fixed end, and this can be analyzed easily. You know how to calculate the bending stresses, shear stresses, the deflected shape of the beam, etc. Now, in a real situation, you may have two structural members connected like this. So the load transfer between this portion of the beam to this column, it happens through the bolts. So if you had to analyze this, you may have to resort to other methods. Sometimes you need to go for numerical method. Another example is shown here, where you have a cylindrical rod with a handle, and you can apply a force at anywhere in this handle portion. This end is fixed. You know how to calculate the stresses in the cylindrical portion of the rod. It is subjected to a bending moment and a torque. However, notice here there is a hole, so this can make things more involved. So there are situations where either analytical method or numerical method cannot provide you sufficient information about the stresses and strains, and you may have to perform experiment. Let us look at the problem of this simply supported beam with a point load at midspan as shown here. You know how to calculate the bending stress and also the shear stress. Let us now try to get some more insight into the sigma yy stress component due to this force acting here. To do that, I would look very closely to the region of the beam around the point of application of this load F as shown here. So I am separating a portion of the beam and the load is shown here. The axis system is x-axis is downward, y-axis is to the right, and I also have indicated r theta coordinates in this figure. Now let us look at the xz plane, or about the x-axis there is symmetry of load, material and geometry. So on this plane the shear stress should be 0. On this plane the shear stress should be 0. Now we will further isolate the material enclosed within this semicircle C1 here and the top boundary. So this material is under equilibrium, so there will be stresses developed on this circular surface, and you will have sigma rr and sigma r theta as shown here. Since sigma r theta is 0 on this xz plane, it will have its direction changed as you cross the xz plane. Now this system is in equilibrium. So from equilibrium consideration, you can write this expression here, which is nothing but the total force in the x direction due to sigma RR stress component and sigma R theta stress component. Now the superscript 1 is to indicate that these are stress components on the cylindrical surface C1. R1 is constant here. Theta varies from minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2. B is the width of the beam. Now, if I consider another circle C2 as shown here and the material enclosed by C2 and the top surface, again on this surface C2 there will be a distribution of stress as shown like this, sigma RR 2 and sigma R theta 2. Again, from equilibrium consideration, we can write this equation, which is almost similar to what we saw earlier, but here the stress components are sigma RR 2 and R theta 2, and R2 is used here, and theta varies from minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2. Now, if you look at these two equations, if I keep on taking circles which are smaller and smaller in radius, you will find that the stress components should scale as 1 over R shown here. Right? It is very evident. So what does this tell us? As we approach the loading point, the stresses vary as 1 over R, or exactly at the loading point they are unbounded. Okay, I will leave you with this much information at this stage. So from simple equilibrium considerations, we can get good insight on how the stresses will vary as you approach the loading point. Okay. Later in the course ME 321, you will be able to get somewhat closed form solution to this problem when the domain is semi-infinite. Okay. So design calculations, as I said earlier, use stress levels to determine if the part or component is safe or not. So we should know how to calculate stresses either through analytical approach or through numerical approach, or when both of these approaches are not sufficient, you'll have to do experimental stress analysis.